Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to the Max Revenue channel. This is our special series that we are calling Diary of a New Producer. We're basically giving you guys a look behind the curtain into the life of a new producer we're calling Incognito and showing you his journey, the ups, the downs to building $1 million book of business or more from scratch. My name is Mike Salas. I'm his mentor. Let's get into this, folks. So we are on week 12, I think. Time is flying by. But this week, what I want to talk to you guys about 4 different things: importance of frameworks, but being flexible, levels of clients and prospects, silence, patterns, and lastly, feeling the heat. All right, so first thing, framework. I was talking with Ian this week and we're chatting and he's like, man, I had a first meeting and the guy just kept talking, so I let him talk, but I was like, should I get back to the first meeting outline? And I was like, man, hey, understand this. Everybody you meet with is different. Some people want to talk. If they want to talk about their personal life, let them talk. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, if you've allotted 30 minutes for a meeting and they're talking to 25 minutes, maybe try to work in some ways to steer the conversation back on plan. But the whole point of the first meeting framework, for those who bought the course or maybe have seen other videos that we do on that, is not to be to box you in necessarily. It's just to be a guide so that you can get back on track if conversations go in different directions, which is bound to happen. I know sometimes it seems like we're all about like, don't talk about personal things, that's old school. If you see a picture on the wall, don't ask them any questions about it. I disagree with that. I mean, I've been doing this for 12 years. Humans are still human, right? They want to talk about their personal lives. Now there's some buyers that don't. You get in there and they want to get right to business. That's fine. The whole point is you got to kind of be a chameleon, right? And so the original point of all this is that I'm trying to make is have a framework, but don't get so rigid where you feel boxed in with it. All right. Second thing we talked about, like I said, is levels of prospects, attitude, right? And where they're at. You're going to have people that are extremely happy, love their agent. You're going to have people that are just, whatever, I like my agent, but they're not like in love with them. And then you're going to have unhappy people that you could call them and they'll probably switch to you today, right? We all love the low-hanging fruit. That's awesome. But let's be real that you don't just stumble into those every single day. So I think the key is, and where you want to really get better with your sales skills and your question asking is, how can you get the people in that middle group, I'm kind of, agnostic to my agent, he's okay. How can you get those people moved and motivated to see that what you bring to the table is better than what their current agent is bringing to the table? And that's what Ian and I were talking about. And I'm like, the reason I like to divide people in these buckets is because the really, really happy people, I will still do due diligence for them. I'll review the program, come back and meet with them. But I put a lot less stock into those prospects than I do in the people in the center. Because the people in the center, if I look back on my sales results personally, I can go back to that first meeting and there was already kind of like little pains coming up in that conversation, right? I have broken up relationships, 30-year relationships where people tell me they love their agent, of course. But I think the key is finding those people in the center and then through good question asking, figuring out if there's more pain than they're even letting on, right? They might not even be making you aware of some of the pains they have and they might not even know the pains. And that's where your job is to kind of find the pain through your conversations and the types of questions that you ask, right? This is why I'm a big fan of the research call. And then coming back on the due diligence side of things to really hopefully find some pain where they don't think any exists, okay? So next thing I want to talk about is, and I think you've all faced this, and Ian's kind of struggling mentally with this, but good first meeting. They say, yep, let's do the due diligence, let's move forward. They're not getting him the stuff, right? Or anything, maybe kind of ghosting him. And he's like, hey, what could I be doing wrong? And so he has 3 deals right now that are in this phase. I said, well, first of all, the data set's not big enough to really determine like if there's something you need to change that is systematically just not working. But I said, this happens to me too, right? And this is one of the reasons I'm a big fan of having a bigger pipeline than you really think you need, because people just have other priorities, right? And it doesn't mean they're not interested, but insurance isn't high on their priority list. also you got to recognize when we're trying to get hired, we're not basing that off of an X date per se. I mean, we are working out ahead 3-4 months, but in people's minds, they still think like, oh, I got plenty of time before my insurance renews. It's not a hot button issue. And so I think there's a couple of factors at play like that can really delay the sale. Where if you were quoting, that, okay, they got to get the information. They know that the time frame, it's different. So you have to kind of create those time frames for your prospect and set those up for them, And so what I would recommend is when you're at that first meeting and you close and just say, hey, perfect, great. We're looking forward to doing the due diligence. I'll send you a list of what I need. And then if you don't mind, I'll follow up with you in a week. Is that fine? Get that commitment from them there. And then what I do from here on out is if they're starting to go, I'll follow up with them that day. I'll call an email and I'll kind of borderline, I don't want to use the word harass, but I will stay on them, right? I will see those opportunities through. And even if it means just making a call once a week, but then let's say you do that for 2 months and just nothing yet. Then I maybe back off, but I'll still put them in my follow-up quarterly and just be like, hey man, whatever happened last year? I assume you got probably swamped. I've had some really good deals come back to life that way. So again, don't take it personal. This happens. If it's always happening to you, maybe you look at kind of how you're closing out that first meeting and maybe you create some sense of urgency. Maybe you lay out a timeline in that first meeting, like, okay, great, I'm going to send you an email. Your policies do come up for renewal in 4 months, like I talked about. You're going to want to have this, due diligence, and you're going to want to make it an agent selection 90 to 120 days before that. So that's why I would encourage you to, give me this information quickly, and then we'll get it turned quickly. So it happens to everyone. Don't beat yourself up, but hopefully some of those tips help you guys. I kind of just alluded to this, but one of Ian's questions to me, like, hey, is there something I'm doing wrong? Could I be doing something different? Maybe, right? But I said, this has happened on 3 occasions. That's not enough data to really to say, hey, there's a pattern here. There's a problem. Same thing with cold calling. I see this all the time. You do a script once, like, sucks, didn't work at all. Got rejected 5 times. Well, that could happen when you use the best script in the world. You got to have some data and some attempts to see what's working, what's not. So that goes for cold calling scripts. It goes for first meeting outlines. It goes for the types of questions you're asking, the sales, the sales kind of methodology you take, whether it's drops, cold calls, emails. You got to have some data to be able to tell. And I'd say maybe after a month, 2 months, 3 months, you can start to look back and see, hey, is this working or is this not working? All right, sorry, dropped my piece of paper here, but the last thing is feeling the heat. So Ian was like, man, I'm feeling the heat. I closed the deal, my first 2-3 weeks. Now it's been 7-8 weeks. I feel like I got to get stuff going. And I said, hey man, relax. First of all, that's awesome you feel this way, because I still feel this way. 12 years in, I felt this way when I had a very established book of business. As you know, me personally, I started over, but that's a great feeling to have. But you don't want to let it consume you, right? You don't want to be selling from a place of fear either. But that little fire inside you, that's awesome. So just maintain it, but don't let it turn into like a huge fire, consume you, stress you out, lose sleep over it. And just let that fuel you every day to stay consistent, to stay motivated, to stay excited. He also made an interesting comment. He's like, this is the reason why I see that you're recommending the follow-up later list. It really helps keep me kind of excited, enthused. And I said, yes, you're exactly right. That is the whole reason. One of the big reasons for the follow-up later list is because this industry is a grind mentally. And you will go through dry spells for months, but it doesn't mean your year is shot, okay? So just keep that in mind, right? Beyond that, that's really what we talked about this week. Again, I think this was week 12. So a lot of good stuff from Ian. Numbers last week made about 120 calls, and he's been very consistent in that 100 to 140 range, and setting up like 1 meeting a week almost, pretty much. So anyways, keep up the good work. Thanks for supporting us. If you like this show, like, subscribe, share with others, comment below. Love to be a resource for y'all. Thanks.